Hey guys, what's up? It's Jacqueline Oberdors. I just wanted to give a shout out to Andre Joseph and Jeff Galashaw, co-hosts of the Unfinished Business Television podcast. And I wanted to ask you guys if you have ever seen an underrated film of mine, and it's called Tortilla Soup. And if you have, great. I want to know if you liked it. And if not, why not? It's a pretty great little film. It was very low budget and it was shot quite a few years ago. It's a reinterpretation of a film called Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. And there's a little something in it for everyone. So if you haven't seen it, maybe check it out and make sure you have some snacks nearby because you will be getting hungry watching this movie. All right, you guys, I hope you're all well. Stay safe out there. Peace out.
Hey there, folks. Welcome back. We're here with the May edition of Unfinished Business Television, where we're going to talk all about some recent releases and some movie reviews. I am Jeff Galashaw, Unfinished B1. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
Crack is whack.
Yes, it is. So let's get this thing started and start by talking about a rather unorthodox movie, romantic comedy, actually, that goes by the name of Oh Hi. It's a romantic comedy that is a young couple going away for a weekend trip to a cabin. And, they're getting intimate, a little freaky when the woman thinks that, they're going to, I guess, commit to each other and finds out that the guy sees this more as let's feel it out, but nothing serious. So then she ends up leaving him chained to the bed. And then I guess she comes to the realization of how is she going to get out of this, taking him hostage. So, of course, involves her friend and her friend's boyfriend, and hijinks ensue. I actually surprisingly like this movie, despite its crazy premise, because I felt like this is a kind of a movie about miscommunication and how modern day relationships, maybe we act in a different way than we mean, or maybe we don't know a good thing when we have it and we take it for granted. And I mean, I liked all of the characters, though I will admit, for an indie film, it felt like more of a theatrical production, with like the one location, characters coming in and out. There are some scenes outside of that, but for the most part, it just seems like it keeps feeling theatrical. But despite all that, I liked it as kind of a quirky look at modern love. I mean, I'm not used to Logan Lerman kind of playing the jerk in movies, so it's a new thing. But I was charmed by Molly Gordon. I was charmed by Logan Lerman. Geraldine Vishwatan as the best friend. I mean, I'm tired of her always having that same type of role. I'd like her maybe to be more in leads these days. Like there was nothing wrong with her being the lead in this film. Sorry, Molly Gordon, you are good. But, I would have liked, it would have been different. I wouldn't have known what to expect. But I'm going to give this film a recommendation. Andre, what did you think of Oh Hi?
It definitely was not what I expected when I came into it. I thought it would just be like a straightforward romantic comedy and maybe a slight dark undercurrent to it, which there is, but not in the way that I expected it to be. And I mean, it reminded me a lot of Send Help, but not as violent. It's really just more like, but the same idea, like the girl's just really crazy and the dude is looking for every which way to get out of it, except now you play up this whole like magic aspect to it or perceived magic. There was that point when you bring in Geraldine and the boyfriend to try to like help her out and make sure this guy doesn't get out of the bedroom. I was getting a little frustrated, especially when the guy starts to become a little too trustworthy with Logan Lerman. And he's like, well, you got to help me. Open up the window. You knew something was going to go on. This guy was going to find every which way to escape. So it's like you kind of saw the twist coming. but the performances definitely make it work. I was really shocked with the nudity on Molly Gordon. My God, I was like, oh, she's quite the looker. But I do agree the roles definitely should have been swapped. Not that she wasn't bad, but I think Geraldine would have brought more to it. This is a recommendation. And I would also say, too, I was expecting a little bit more out of David Cross. I thought there'd be a little bit more twisting with him, and it just was like there, I guess, for star power.
Pretty much. I mean, he's older now. He's not, the new kid on the block. So
he's not bitter anymore.
Yeah, so now he's just like, we'll just have him as supporting old guy neighbor number one, So, but that is both a recommendation of Ojai, which I believe is on Netflix still, if for those of you who want to catch it. Not a Netflix original. It did actually make it to theaters. Next, we're going to talk about kind of a little controversial movie named Christy, starring Sydney Sweeney, which is based on a true story of a boxer. Do you know the boxer's a real name?
Give me 1 second to pull this up.
Okay. Yes, we should have had that already, folks. Sorry.
Christy Martin.
Christy Martin. And I know the story from a documentary that I saw on Netflix, so I knew the story. But of course, it's a docudrama, making it more personal. And, Sydney Sweeney gained 30 pounds to play this leading role. And, she basically is a lesbian and is forced by her family and just society kind of to be in a marriage with her trainer, played by Ben Foster, who is kind of a scumbag from the beginning. And eventually she rises through the ranks and he's skimming money off the top. He's basically her Joe Jackson, trying to isolate her, giving her drugs, keeping her away from family and friends. And then when she does, tries to convince him that she's crazy and high. And, he's the grounding force, even though he always tells her that if she tries to leave him, he'll kill her. Gee, wonder what happens towards the end. Andre, what did you think of Christy?
Christy left me very mixed. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be the biggest Sydney Sweeney fan in the world. Yes, she's attractive, but there's aspects to her that are not so appealing. But we won't get into that right now. I think this movie, I'll applaud the effort that she tried to put in to be Christy Martin. And I didn't go in really knowing too much about her story. I think I vaguely had heard about her through the fight with Layla Ali. I remember that being advertised back when I was in college. So there was like maybe a little bit of that in some of the magazines, but I really didn't know much about her. And so what I basically saw with this movie was this was Raging Bull. It's the rise and the fall. And like you said, everything is pretty much expected. You knew Ben Foster was going to end up being the one trying to screw her over financially, and then, was going to try to do some dirty deeds towards the end as her career goes on the downward trend. And you got to throw in a Don King personality in there, and Chad Coleman playing the part. He's been getting around lately, Mr. King. Surprisingly, he's still alive. But you see, I think this movie, the boxing, it's not anything that I haven't seen before. It's like basically like Southpaw or any of these other recent boxing films. There's nothing really original or extravagant or really getting into it. It's really more about the character of Christy Martin and the fact that she's married, but deep down, she swings the other way. And then Katie O'Brien comes in at the 11th hour to have this whole like romance that comes about way too late in the film, for my taste. And I can't really give this too much of a recommendation. I think it could have been a much better film in better hands and maybe a different actress. Not that she wasn't terrible, but I think it would have had more prestige level if maybe somebody equivalent in her age range could do it. That's like a respected actress and not basically, eye candy. So that's really Christy for me.
I give it a mild recommendation. It does what it's supposed to do, but it's just so basic. There's nothing quite memorable about it. I mean, I can understand as a project why it was appealing for her and for the producers to cast her. But the problem is, at this point, she is considered a star, not an actor. And you can tell because she's giving a star performance, but not an acting performance. You know, she's good enough. It kind of reminds me of those 90s HBO movies where you just attach a star and some, recognizable, relatable actors around them and all had bad wigs. And then, but around Emmy time, it would clear up. It would clean up. That's what this film felt like, but there's nothing quite that memorable. In fact, the only thing that's memorable is if you're kind of familiar with the actors, because you're like, whoa, Ben Foster, like all this fat suit, the bad hairdo. But I mean, he's always playing villains or assholes, so not out of his wheelhouse. And there's nothing appealing about him. His character, you're just like, ew, this is the best you can find, or this is what she was forced into. So it's like they couldn't even play up an aspect like, well, she found him interesting at first. Because even from the beginning, he's like, hey, get her out of here, break a rib if you have to. The only reason he's impressed by her is because she has a good left hook,
I also, on a side note, Ethan Embry kind of worries me a bit because here he is playing the father of Christy Martin. And my God, I mean, Can't Hardly Wait isn't even a 30-year-old movie yet. He looks like he aged a lot.
Well, I'd like to think that's makeup too. I don't think he aged that badly. I mean, look at Merritt Weaver playing her mother. She's not that old, I mean, she's a little bit more memorable because, the character of the mother is just so heinous and such a bitch, and obviously represents the Midwest right wing circle. She's like next to Ben Foster, the most evil person in this film, But even the only thing I could say that was memorable about this film was the scene in which Ben Foster attacks her towards the end. That was memorable. But even like the cheesy scene when she's out of the hospital making her comeback and all of them are apologizing and hugging her and like, oh, Christy, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. It was just like, I know it was needed, but it just felt so it just felt tacky. But I mean, there were knives out for this film as soon as the Sydney Sweeney backlash happened. I'm not going to say this film would make anybody who already doesn't like her or is not a fan of her switch their positions, but it shows at least she's trying. This was obviously not a vanity project. And I think she does the best she can with the material. I just wish it had a little more pizzazz that keeps your interest up. So I give it a mild recommendation. Our next movie, I don't care. I'm going to spoil it. This is the biggest piece of shit I have seen this year, even though it came out last year. It was a bad idea from the beginning. I'm talking about the reboot of Anaconda, starring Jack Black and Paul Rudd, that is supposed to be a comedy, of two guys who saw the original and then decide, hey, we're going to remake it. And then in the middle of it, oh my God, there's a real Anaconda. This is the stupidest premise for a film. They try to change it with Jack Black being more the straight man and Paul Rudd being more the wacky womanizer, nice guy. And it just doesn't work. They even throw in Daniela Melancour, who they just seem to be throwing in anything these days. Like there's no rhyme or reason to the role she takes except Hispanic female. So, I mean, this movie's bad. I'm sorry. I didn't even want to see it when I saw the trailer and heard the premise. But it was on Netflix. Nothing else was on. So I gave it a chance. I think this is bad. I'm even wondering, why is Tandy Newton in this film other than a paycheck? Because while she's still looking good, but it's just like, at least if you're going to be in a comedy, be in a good one. This was just horrible. And the cameos might be cute, but it didn't save this film. And I'm like, he's the only interesting character in this whole movie. And another co-star who was just there last minute for a cameo. No, like you couldn't call Eric Stoltz. Like you talk about him enough in this film. I'm
I
sure
thought
he
John
would.
Voight would show up.
I don't know. The politics thing might be a problem. But my thing is, be a little more meta at least if you're gonna like make fun of these movies, then make it a movie. It's I obviously am not recommending this movie. I hate this movie. I want to burn the negative. Jack Black, read scripts and pick a good movie to be in. Andre, how did you feel about Anaconda?
Well, first of all, I forgot Eric Stoltz was in the original. That's how long it's been since I've seen the original Anaconda. I'm with you. Listen, this is one of those films where the writers thought they would be so smart the way the 21 Jump Street writers were. Oh, yeah, we know this is not a necessary movie to make, but we're going to do it anyway and really make this meta in the sense of having, I guess, Jack Black being an aspiring filmmaker and he hasn't really made his thing yet. And so Paul Rudd's like, oh, Anaconda, I saw the poster for that. We should go out and remake it with our own money. And yeah, the whole thing is just kind of dumb from there. But yeah, the jokes don't land. It feels like it's in the same universe as the Jumanji sequels where they think they're being clever and they're not. And I agree, everybody's doing this for the check. You got the shoehorned in cameos. You got the bit where you have the real crew trying to shoot the real remake, and then they all get wiped out by the snake. And the snake dies very easily in the final act. So there's really nothing exciting about this. They try to give it stakes. They try to give it some emotional jeopardy. But this really felt like a movie you could have just thrown out in January when nobody was going to the theaters. I don't know why they thought this would be a big holiday release. So yeah, no recommendation for me whatsoever.
This could have been a streaming movie.
Yeah, it could have been a streaming film. Just quickly forgotten, 1 week in and out.
Yeah, so obviously that seems to be the film we both hate the most this episode. So next, we are going to talk about Crime 101. Or Heat 1.5, as it might be known to some people. This stars Chris Hemsworth as a professional thief who's, of course, doing one last job or forced to do one last job with all these complications. And we follow the lives of different people who are integral to this and cross paths. Mark Ruffalo as the detective who knows he's right, even though all his colleagues are wrong or don't believe there is a pattern to these robberies. We have Halle Berry as an insurance agent who's past her prime, has been passed over, and wants to be recognized for her work or at least get paid. And then we have Barry Keoghan being a Barry Keoghan character who rides a motorcycle. And Nick Nolte is in here in the mix as the mentor father figure who is not above double crosses. And Andre, what did you think of Crime 101? And
I was bored with this film. It already from the get-go, this looked like Heat 2.0 mixed with Crash, with the way everybody intersects with one another and different twists and turns. Mark Ruffalo looking like this distraught old cop, and he likes yoga for some reason, and they try to hint at a potential romance with him and Halle Berry. I couldn't follow this plot whatsoever. And Chris Hemsworth is no different than any other criminal trying to, get out of the business. And he falls for a girl. It's the girl from Top Gun that he has the hots for and wants to give it all up once he pulls off this big score. What really was getting me frustrated to half the time watching this film is him chasing Barry Keoghan trying to kill him. And there's like maybe 3 occasions where he could have taken Barry Keoghan out and not have a problem later on in the film. And he doesn't do it because this guy, for some reason, doesn't want to kill. So this is just one of those movies where it feels like this could have been a ChatGPT script for all I know. There wasn't anything new or fresh about it. Nobody was interesting. And I really didn't think this was anything to the level of a Michael Mann film. So yeah, again, no recommendation.
I think I liked it a little bit more than you. I agree. It's very it's slow for a crime film.
Very slow.
the central crime story doesn't make any sense as to why Nick Nolte wants Barry Keoghan to take Chris Hemsworth. Well, really, he's only supposed to rob him, but Barry Keoghan's on this I must kill him for no real reason, just to do it. It was interesting having Chris Hemsworth's character kind of be more introverted and shy. That is the only thing of originality I can give the film. And like you said, I enjoyed the aspect of trying to show they have lives separate from their jobs and all have their motivations. I just wish everything could have melded together a little better, again, like Heat, like let's meld this so that their home lives and their crime lives can be of interest and not like feel like the movie's slowing down when we go to one or the other. And it makes no sense. If Barry Keoghan's out here been trying to kill you the whole movie, you're still going to do the job. It makes no sense. And poor Tate Donovan. I'm like, are these the roles we're getting these days? Even your young fiance called you a pussy. I'm like, geez. The only scene of interest was the scene that really doesn't do anything when I guess some guy shoots a teenager who he thought had a gun and he knows doesn't have a gun. And then the cop walks away saying that he had a gun. And then everybody on the scene is saying that the kid had a gun, even supposedly his partner. And we never see that partner again. So it's like, that was interesting, but why put it in there if there's going to be nothing through the rest of the film with it? I just feel like the writing, or at least the story, is there, but it could have been more cohesive in the writing so that it interests the audience, not so much from a character aspect, but at least keeps the audience interested. So that's why I'm not totally going to it. And you can make a film in Los Angeles, a crime thriller that doesn't look like Heat, but there were just too many elements that felt similar. And because again, Los Angeles is a very broad town, so you're going to run into certain things. I just didn't like the romance thing, like you said, towards the end. I was kind of hoping he was only doing the romance thing so that he could get out of that like insurance thing and not get caught. But then this film makes it like, no, there's going to be this weird romance. And no offense, I just didn't like her character, And, so that's why I was just like, but I couldn't wait for it to be over watching it. Like, you're sitting there hoping, oh, this is going to all make sense, or at least give me a good action sequence towards the end. So that makes up for having to sit through all this. No. So I feel like for people who don't like Heat, this is what it must feel like sitting through Heat for them. So I give it a mild recommendation. If it's on, check it out. But if not, watch Den of Thieves or watch Heat. They're much more fun and interesting and time consuming. So that is Crime 101. And for our next film is a fairly recent, now hold on to your hats, folks, Netflix original, named Apex or Apex, depending how you say it, starring Charlize Theron and Taron Egerton. Charlize Theron is, I guess, an adventurer, you could call her. Because is she a professional climber or hiker? And
I guess she just likes the thrill of it.
Because it's never quite clear how does she make her money. But, so she loses her boyfriend at the beginning of the film on a cliff. So she decides to go to Australia and hike this trail and camp. I think this was a trail she had planned to do with her boyfriend and is doing it in honor of him. So already, if you've seen the movie Fall, this feels a little familiar. But on this thing, she runs into a sadistic Aussie played by Taron Egerton, who at first comes across as nice and then turns into this like sadistic serial killing hunter who I suspect takes his victims and makes them into his beef jerky that he sells at the local market. Again, great plot right there, or sideline. Then the movie happens. And it kind of feels like a little bit like it feels like so many other movies you see. It feels like The River Wild. It feels like not Whitewater Summer.
I was going to say Whitewater Summer.
I'd be like all of Kevin Bacon's rafting movies. But it's good for what it is. It's good for a Netflix movie and a solid little thriller, but it gets repetitive after a while, you know? You're just like, oh, Taron's after her again, and she gets the slip again. Plus, I know it doesn't matter, but Charlize Theron's looks were very distracting in this movie. She's too good looking to play this believable character that's roughing it, but yet looks impeccable in almost every scene. It would be like Demi Moore trying to play like a lifelong hiker. It didn't feel believable. That's not my problem with the movie, but you've seen this before. Again, it's a Netflix original, so it's pretty basic. Nothing quite original, but it's a fun time for what it is, but you will probably forget it right after you watch it. I'll give it a mild recommend. I probably wouldn't watch it again because it doesn't stick out in my mind that much of something that is all that memorable, but I wouldn't say it's horrible, you know. Maybe Uma Thurman should have made this movie instead of Pretty Lethal with the ballerinas, or that sequel to that Charlize Theron movie.
Old Guard.
Yeah. Like Uma should have had this role, you know. But I'll give it to Taron Egerton. He's getting good at these character roles, you know. Even though the whole time I was thinking, James McAvoy must be busy. But he held his own, and I give him credit. So this is a nice, cute little, no, it's not cute, but it's a nice little thriller. It's a time waster. It's, you know, so I give it a mild recommendation. Andre, what did you think of Apex?
For a Netflix picture, it's probably better than most in terms of quality. It had the feel of these Oz exploitation flicks, like a movie we reviewed a while back, Fortress, you know, the intense violence of that movie. Yeah, I agree that there's really nothing inherently original about it. We've seen this 8 million times. I think the only thing that really makes it interesting is, first of all, it is very brutal and violent, though they do pull back at points, particularly Charlize Theron trying to get to the raft, and she gets trapped with what appears to be like a bear claw, but it's really just metal crushed against her ankles. It doesn't spike her or really do any serious damage. And yeah, Taron Egerton basically doing his best James McAvoy impression, but good at it. You know, he's got the thing with the teeth, and you know, he loves rave music. There's even the bit where he's just at times almost like regressing into a childlike state when he's vulnerable. You know, so that made him a little bit more interesting than just a one-dimensional villain. But at the same time, I just at times, like some of these other movies we've been reviewing, there are points where I'm looking at this woman when she gets the upper hand. She should be able to take this guy out and then try to get the hell out of the trail. And she's still keeping him alive for no reason, when she doesn't need him after all, especially when she goes to the cave and sees all the dead bodies of all the previous hikers that went missing. Like, I would have taken this guy out in a heartbeat, but you're keeping her alive for like another 20, 30 minutes at this picture. No, that's just bad writing 101 right there. So I give this one a mild recommendation because I think it is mildly entertaining, but I can't say it's like a masterpiece. I don't think it's like the most original. I like you. I was definitely getting the vibe of River Wild, the Whitewater Summer, the same type of survivalist tale, just no Kevin Bacon trying to kill kids. And that's that.
Yeah, and I'm like, Eric Bana, another one. Like,
yeah,
get a better agent, man. You shouldn't be getting killed off in the first like 5-15 minutes of a movie.
He got the Gwyneth Paltrow treatment.
Yeah, because I'm just like, geez, it's nothing but an over-glorified cameo. You know, I guess maybe this is part of Taron Egerton's Netflix contract between this and that Jason Bateman thriller. So, you know, I'm just like, And for our final film, we are going to talk about Project Hail Mary, starring Ryan Gosling primarily. But this is about a science teacher who's sent to space uh, basically to save the earth. Kind of forcefully. But at first we don't know anything about what's happening. And as he gets his memories back, we in the audience are informed also as he goes on this adventure. Andre, what did you think of Project Hail Mary?
Okay, finally, something I really can recommend. Listen, I think this is definitely one of the better films that has come out this year. And I saw it just at a regular 2D theater at Alamo, but the visuals were stunning. I really did feel like I was watching 2001 Space Odyssey at points because it really was like bright and hypnotic, and yet also that tongue-in-cheek fun about it too. I like the dynamic between Ryan Gosling and the CG. Well, not even really CG. It turned out to be also practical. Rocky, that whole relationship that they have that is very much. I think this to me. Let me pull back a second. I think this is Phil Lord and Chris Miller's revenge picture after getting fired from Solo. They went all out with really solid storytelling, practical effects mixed with really solid CGI that they put the work into. I kind of liked, even though it was jarring in the beginning, but I got used to it. The cutting back and forth between Ryan Gosling before he goes on the mission and then when he's actually on the ship and dealing with all the craziness that's happening in trying to survive, but also save the planet, get what he needs because he's like sort of a botanist. I never read the book, so but I have seen The Martian, so I have a familiarity with that style of writing. I just think that this was just a fun, entertaining sci-fi film that really goes back to the old school type of sci-fi films, not just 2001, but also watching like a Close Encounters or E.T. type of movie, something that could have been an Amblin production that we don't get enough of these days. And it just had the right emotional beats. There was no like love interest tapped in. There's no villains. There's like a little bit of a conspiracy plot going on and trying to get them on the ship, but it's nothing really all that dangerous ultimately in the end. I had nothing bad to say about this. I had fun with it. I highly recommend it. And I think Phil Lord and Chris Miller definitely signed their ticket at Hollywood with this one.
I like the film. I agree, it's probably one of the better films I've seen this year. But I think the thing that helps the film is my problem with it is I feel emotionally manipulated. I felt like a Spielberg film, like, oh, this is so cute. It's not really giving me the seriousness of the situation, or it's giving it to me through kind of rose tinted glasses, and cleverly throwing in, Rocky reference,
Yeah.
But despite all that, I'll admit it got me teary eyed and worried watching the film in certain scenes. So it did work with what it was supposed to do. It just again, I just in particular don't like it when I could tell I'm being emotionally manipulated when it becomes obvious. So that is the only deterrent I have for the film. But otherwise than that, I don't think it's on the same level as 2001 A Space Odyssey.
No, not close. Yeah.
Okay, but I do think it is very bright colored and colorful and emotion. I think it relies more on humanity and emotions and feelings more than it does necessarily science. Again, like you, I didn't read the book. And I have seen the movie The Martian. I like this a hell of a lot more. But this is definitely also something you should definitely see in the theater to get the full cinematic experience because it is visually, amazing. I like the flashbacks as it gives everybody a little bit more character. I liked the character of, I guess, his boss, agent who
The German lady.
Yeah, but I like her as an actress anyway. So I've seen her in other movies from Germany where I'm just like, Okay, I like her because she always kind of plays that kind of sourpuss who has, little sparks of humanity running
Yeah,
through
which
her.
is doing the karaoke with everybody.
Exactly. I was shocked we got less of a storyline of, I guess, the other astronauts. And
Yeah, they had the AT&T girl that plays Lily, and then they find out she died on the way to the planet.
it's like, yeah, she has like really no
No
lines.
lines.
Same thing with the Asian guy. It was like
Yeah.
you see him in tons of stuff, and that's all he's in this movie for a few hot seconds and scenes. I'm just
I
like,
wonder if this was supposed to be like a nod to Silent Running.
I don't know, or if maybe they were a little more fleshed out, but cut for time, even though this movie's 2.5 hours long. But I will give it credit where it's due. And again, Ryan Gosling comes across winning throughout this film. He stays believable. I don't believe his character would be single, but it works for the movie. I'm like, sorry, dude, you're too good looking. So. But I did really enjoy the film, despite my little misgiving. And unlike a Steven Spielberg film, it knows where to end. So I give this a high recommendation. And probably I would say, yes, it is the best film of this episode that we reviewed. As much as I love this movie, is how much I hate Anaconda, the Paul Rudd, Jack Black version. So I definitely highly recommend all of you run out and go see Project Hail Mary, which is still in theater, shockingly, because it is officially a hit. So, and that ends our business with this episode. But as you know, we always have unfinished business. But before you go, I must ask, have you seen? Give me a second because I didn't prepare for this previously. So, have you seen White Men Can't Jump? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, what film would you recommend to the people?
Have you seen the documentary Heather O'Rourke? She Was Here. If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
And with that, we bid you adieu.